EastEnders sex scandal as big 90s couple reunite in early BBC iPlayer release. An iconic couple from the 90s have fallen back into each other's embrace in recent EastEnders scenes, after a traumatic time in both of their lives. Grant Mitchell recently returned to Albert Square after being summoned by Nigel Bates, who was worried about Phil Mitchell. Unfortunately, Grant proved to be little help for Phil, who was experiencing a mental health crisis, and soon his brother had cut him out of his life completely. Elsewhere, Grant didn't exactly get the friendliest reception from Bianca Jackson, who was still furious about the events leading up to best friend Tiffany's death. His relationship with Nigel also suffered in tonight's episode, as they rowed over Nigel's recent diagnosis of young-onset dementia. Grant was adamant he wanted to help Nigel through his illness, but Nigel argued that he wasn't up to the task. Meanwhile, Sharon Watts was struggling with the idea of going home without Martin Fowler, who had been killed in the recent Queen Vic explosion. Boyfriend Teddy Mitchell offered to have Sharon stay at his place, but things took a bad turn when he screened a call from Michelle Fowler, leaving Sharon furious. With Sharon and Grant both in a bad place, it was no wonder really that they fell back into old habits. Grant paid Sharon a visit to inform her that he was heading back to Portugal the following day, and it didn't take long for the pair to start reminiscing. As Sharon thanked Grant for saving her from the crumbling Vic, things turned passionate, and Grant kissed her. Sharon wasted no time in reciprocating, ignoring a phone call from Teddy in the process. With Teddy eager to apologize and try to make things right, will Sharon's fling with Grant cause tension in her new relationship? Who is Geeta in EastEnders as Cindy exits to be with her? Tonight's EastEnders saw Cindy Beale depart Albert Square after recent dramatic events. Last week, she discovered that it was Kathy Beale who had attacked her and left her for dead on Christmas Day, and her actions in the following minutes led to death and destruction on the square. In tonight's episode, Cindy announced that she was leaving Walford temporarily to stay with old friend Geeta Kapoor, but promised she would be back to dish out revenge before long. Fans of 90s EastEnders will remember Geeta and her friendship with Cindy. But if you don't, we're here to catch you up. Who is Geeta Kapoor in EastEnders? A heavily pregnant Geeta Kapoor arrived in Albert Square in 1993 to be with husband Sanjay. Following her arrival, she was quick to strike up a close friendship with Cindy. During her time on the show, Geeta was involved in some major storylines, including one that saw her discover that husband Sanjay had been having an affair with her sister, Meena. In a bid to get revenge, Geeta left the square with the daughter they shared, only telling Cindy where she was going. Geeta later returned and reunited with Sanjay, but left again after clashing with his mother. When she was set to return, Sanjay headed to the station to pick her up, but she never appeared. Days later, he contacted the police to report her missing. Sanjay was suspected to have murdered her, but was later proven to be innocent. Months later, Geeta was revealed to be alive when she got in contact with friend Ruth Fowler. Sanjay headed to Birmingham where she had been staying, only to discover that she had had a baby after falling pregnant from a one-night stand, having previously struggled to conceive again with Sanjay. When their story was published by a reporter, the Kapoors were left with no choice but to leave Walford in 1998 in order to escape the attention. Who played Geeta Kapoor in EastEnders? Geeta was played by actress Shobhu Kapoor. Prior to joining the BBC soap, she had appeared in TV series Family Pride between 1991 and 1992. Since leaving, she has had a very successful career in television and film. One of her first roles away from EastEnders was in hit movie Bend It Like Beckham, and she went on to be a mainstay in TV series Citizen Khan. She has also had roles in series such as Doctors, The Bill and Holby City. More recently, she has appeared in an episode of Bridgerton and Sky Max comedy Mr. Big Stuff, which stars fellow EastEnders alumni Danny Dyer. 10 huge EastEnders spoilers for next week. What's coming up in Wolford? 1. Sharon shares a secret. After Sharon discovers that Bianca knows her mysterious secret, she decides to take matters into her own hands and braces herself to come clean. However, circumstances beyond her control prevent her from speaking the truth. The worried business lady then confides in her half-brother Zach, but she realizes that someone has overheard their conversation. Later, Barney reveals to Zach that he was the one that listened in, but what will this mean for Sharon? 2. Bianca struggles to cope. Still devastated, Bianca finds it difficult to leave number 25 and face her fellow Wolford residents. George is on hand to reassure his neighbor that she's not responsible for the catastrophe that unfolded. But his words fail to make a difference. Afterwards, Kat makes her own attempt to get through to Bianca, which finally convinces her to open up about her suffering. 3. Alfie feels proud. Despite a turbulent few months, Kat and Alfie finally have reason to feel proud of Tommy when he searches for ways to help a mate that could do with some assistance. Although, the troubled teenager soon reveals that it was actually an online friend of his that came up with the idea to suggest a support group. Later, Tommy joins forces with his dad to throw a lads' night for the needy friend. Will it all go to plan? 4. Barney is injured. Desperate, Zach privately promises Sharon that he will find a way to stop Barney from revealing her secret. Before long, the protective brother confronts Barney at his mum's bar, but disaster strikes when the teen begins to bleed from a stomach injury that he suffered during the explosion at the Vic. 5. Tommy returns home. Ever since Tommy was taken away by social services, the 14-year-old has been living with registered foster carer, Zach. However, his stint away from home finally ends when Kat and Alfie's social worker, Leslie, reveals that their son can move back in with them. This leads the couple to discuss the challenges that they might face, given Tommy's history of violent behavior. Later in the week, Kat and Alfie welcome their boy back into the fold, although it doesn't take long for him to request time online to speak to his mysterious friend. This forces Kat to reveal that she got rid of his console, but she quickly promises to buy him a new one. Elsewhere, Harvey puts together a good deed for Lily, but his efforts backfire on him. 6. Zach wants answers. At the hospital, Zach joins Nicola and Teddy while young Barney receives medical attention for his bleeding wound. As the medics look over their patient, a conversation about blood groups ensues. The topic immediately sparks suspicion within Zach, who pulls the nurse aside for a word before he outright asks Nicola whether he is Barney's biological father. Will she tell him the truth? 7. The Knights step up. Concerned, the Knight family band together to tempt Bianca to visit Beale's Heels. Their efforts fail, however, as she feels too traumatized to leave the house. Subsequently, Kat learns about her friend's predicament and gives some advice that she hopes will help. This time, Bianca goes through with the guidance, but things don't work out as intended. 8. Nicola confesses. With Zach on her case, Nicola gives up her ruse and confesses that he is Barney's dad after all. Back in Wolford, the 36-year-old chef turns to alcohol before receiving a call from Whitney that sends him even further into a slump. Afterwards, Nicola fights to keep her youngest son's paternity under wraps when she plays her trump card with Sharon. A frank conversation then leads the mum of two to believe that she's out of the woods. Later, Nicola and Teddy invite Sharon and Zach to share a meal with them at Wolford East. But as the foursome come face to face, will secrets come to the surface? 9. Kat jumps to conclusions. Struggling with her emotions, Kat fears the worst when Alfie returns home with an injury after a kickabout with Tommy. Tension soon builds and the teenager loses his temper during an argument over his computer console. Meanwhile, Harvey feels shut out by the Slater family. 10. Kojo needs help. Hoping to support Bianca, Kojo visits Beale's Heels to pick up some food for his pal. However, the well-meaning trip takes a turn for the worse when a group of lads target the Knight brother. Luckily, Peter picks up on the situation and informs Bianca, which leads her to face her fears head-on. Can she save Kojo from trouble? EastEnders Cindy Beale makes ominous exit. No one's getting away with anything. What does she have planning? Cindy announced her decision to take a break from Walford in Tuesday's episode. But she left with an ominous warning for some of Albert Square's residents. Last week's episode saw Cindy discover that her ex-mother-in-law Kathy Beale was the mystery culprit who'd attacked her with a shovel and left her for dead on Christmas Day. Cindy considered going to the police with the damning information, but her ex-partner Ian quickly threatened to retaliate by reporting her for his recent shooting and her role in causing the tragic Queen Vic explosion. Today's episode saw Cindy agree to Ian's recent ultimatum, confirming that she'd reluctantly keep quiet about Kathy's crime if he protected her own secrets. In return, Cindy wanted to regain access to the Beale's business account so that she could take back the money that Ian had kept from her. Further wranglings saw Ian demand that Cindy disappeared from Walford in return for the cash. Cindy complied and agreed to go and stay with her old friend Geeta Kapoor for a while. Fond of dramatics, Cindy gathered the suspects in her attack mystery and announced her plans to leave. She feigned ignorance over the culprit's identity by declaring that they'd successfully concealed their guilt, much to Kathy's relief. Later, though, Cindy shared her true intentions as she said goodbye to her on-off-lover Junior night outside the tube station. Junior quizzed Cindy on why she was seemingly letting Ian get away with treating her poorly. She replied, "Oh, no one's getting away with anything. But I'm just happy to let them think they have." For now, what will Cindy have planned when she eventually returns to Walford?
Các bạn vừa theo dõi một sản phẩm của EastEnders January TV. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại.